Should the Sun Devils be confident in the position that matters most, quarterback?
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Wherever you get your podcast, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content, and you can stay in touch with that content by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 with a winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome in to the position preview series. Now, what we are going to be doing, as we have done for the last year, and then I started in 2021. So this is should be the third year. At minimum, it's the second year where we go position by position. We break it down. We go through the overview. We go through the depth chart, and then I got some upsides and downsides for the unit. Today, we're going to be starting at quarterback, and we're going to be taking a look at the question I posed at the beginning, and that's whether or not ASU should be comfortable with the position heading into the year. So without any further ado, let's get right into it and an overview of the quarterback position. And obviously, the biggest storyline here is that Jaden Rashada, former four-star recruit, one of the top 15, he might have been a top 10 highest recruits in program history, transferred about a month ago. Not quite a month ago, probably a few weeks ago. I don't know. He transferred out of the program after it was rumored that he had lost the quarterback competition to Sam Leavitt, who we'll talk more about here in a little bit. But Rashada transferring, he was supposed to be one of the most important, if not the most important players for the Kenny Dillingham era. I said as much. I said, hey, when you look back at Kenny Dillingham in 5 years, 10 years, however long, the first person you're going to think of is Jaden Rashada. It was his first big recruit. It was at the most important position on the field, and it was a very high upside kid. I mean, this was a top 15 quarterback recruit in the entire class of 2023. And he's gone after 1 year. He only appeared in 3 games last year due to injury. He looked good at times, and he looked like a freshman at times. He was someone that I definitely believe still had the upside to be very good, but he's gone. And replacing him is Sam Leavitt, who again is another high upside kid and was also a 4-star recruit in the 2023 recruiting cycle. So Rashada, he could have transferred for a lot of reasons. There could have been NIL opportunities. There could have been opportunities to go to the SEC because he ends up at Georgia. So there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity to play with some of the best talent in the country, one of the best, if not the best head coaches in college football. There's plenty of opportunity for him there. You can't fault him one way or the other. Does it suck? Absolutely. But we also have to understand that this is the landscape of college sports now. But let's talk about the guys on the team. Sam Leavitt, upside kid. This is somebody that isn't going to beat you as a dual threat, but my goodness, he can move around in the pocket. He really is a good replacement for Jaden Rashada. Like, sure, Rashada had probably a little more upside. I think I looked at Rashada as somebody that I truly believe could have been one of the all-time greats for the Sun Devils based on projection. Obviously, we'll never know, and that's a very high bar because ASU has had very good quarterbacks. I just really viewed Rashada in that light. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I can totally own that. Sam Leavitt, there's reason to believe that he should be able to do the same. There's a reason he was as highly recruited as Rashada was out of his recruiting class, out of 2023. We just need to see a little bit more of it. So I need to be a little more open-minded. Like I said, I can own it. There's reason to believe he can still be the face of the program for more reasons than one. Obviously, he plays quarterback. You kind of hope that your quarterback can be the face of your program. There's every reason to believe that somebody that is every bit as talented as Jaden Rashada could be that guy. Now, I want to see whether or not he's got the cannon that he can push down the field like Rashada was able to. But even if he's not, if he ends up just becoming a really good field general, someone that can maneuver the pocket, make those off-script plays, you're happy with it. Sam Leavitt does have upside. And I'm very interested to see how that ends up playing out for him for the upcoming season. Now, the next guy that we need to talk about, obviously, is Trenton Bourguet. And with Trenton Bourguet, what you have is the savvy veteran, the guy who has been with the program for several years, someone who just epitomizes what it means to be an Arizona State Sun Devil, someone who doesn't complain with his role because he hasn't gotten a lot of starts in his career. He's not somebody that has been QB1 without it being for injury reasons. Like, he hasn't entered a year as QB1. He's always on the depth chart, whether he's QB2, 3, 4. But that doesn't matter because he's just somebody who wants to be the best he can for the program, whether that is as a starter, whether that is as a teammate, as a leader, whatever it is. Bourguet is just terrific. He's someone that lifts everybody up. But if Sam Leavitt starts to struggle, what's Bourguet's role look like? Does he become somebody that potentially takes over for Leavitt? Is he someone that really turns into a mentor for Leavitt? That's where I'm curious as to what Bourguet's situation looks like in the long term. But I am a fan of Trenton Bourguet, and I am a believer that there's not very many backup quarterbacks that ASU has had over the last several years that are better than Trenton Bourguet. Jeff Sims recently transferring to the program from Nebraska. What do we do with him? This has been a guy who has been very underwhelming as a passer, but has been pretty darn good as a runner. What's Arizona State's plan with him? I talked about last week that Jeff Sims could be a very interesting weapon for this offense. Somebody that, maybe he's not the starting quarterback. Maybe he's not throwing the ball a lot if Leavitt stays healthy, if Bourguet stays healthy. But I still feel like he's someone that's going to find himself onto the football field. And there's a lot of different ways that you can use him. Obviously, as a runner, he's got some good upside. And Kenny Dillingham showed last year that he likes to get a little bit crazy with that. He has Jalen Conyers running the football out of the formation. He has Cameron Scadaboo running the football out of the formation. There is an opportunity here for Jeff Sims to kind of step into that role as someone that, like, you just plug in for heavy set formations and you do QB power and anything else to just get those tough yards. Maybe out of your Sparky package, him and Cameron Scadaboo are next to each other in goal line situations. And it's going to be a run one way or the other. Maybe you do get those trick plays where he does put the ball up. Maybe you line him up at tight end, or you just find a way to get him on the football field. I just find Jeff Sims to be a very interesting option and a potential weapon for Arizona State. I definitely was underwhelmed when they brought him in. I can totally be transparent with that. This was not a move that really really got me believing that ASU was replacing Rashada in the best way that they could. But he still brings something to the table. And again, if you haven't listened to that podcast, I really encourage you to go back and take a look at the things I had to say about Jeff Sims, because there are a variety of different ways that you can get him the ball and let him do what he's good at. He is in a best case scenario, a weapon for you, and a good veteran and somebody who could be like your third quarterback on the depth chart. But that's a really good transition to the next part of the podcast where we are going to take a look at the depth chart. We're going to take a look at these guys again, and then I'm going to give you my projected order of the depth chart for the team. I've got 4 guys that we're going to talk about. We're going to hop into it in just one moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to spend on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We've talked about before about the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel, because if you watch Fox Sports, ESPN, and you're turning down the volume because of all the shouting, then Locked On Sports Today was made for you. They bring you the biggest stories without the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, news, all streaming on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's get back into our conversation now and take a look at the potential depth chart ordering. And this is going to be a really fun conversation, in my opinion. Is in theory and on paper, I feel like it's kind of a concrete order of who QB1 through QB4 is going to be. But they all have their own individual roles. So we'll start with QB1. Very obvious, it's Sam Leavitt. And there's a few things that play into Sam Leavitt being QB1. We will talk about the most important part here, and that's that Sam Leavitt is a redshirt freshman. He still has 4 years of eligibility. This is a player that could be the face of the program, and that was something that we touched on a little bit previously, but Arizona State is looking for that young gunslinger quarterback. They're looking for that young, innovative, somebody that can do a little bit of everything on offense, whether it's as a runner, an improviser, or just as a passer. Leavitt brings that opportunity to be those 3 things, but he also is young enough and has the upside that when people are on the outside looking in of the Arizona State Sun Devils football program, whether that's casual fans or media, Leavitt could be the guy that they go to first. You could listen to the Locked On College Football podcast, and my good friend Spencer Schultz could be, not Schultz, Spencer McLaughlin could be talking about the situation at Arizona State, and he could go, yeah, well, Sam Leavitt is a very good quarterback, and he's somebody that should be able to get ASU to that X amount of wins margin, and somebody that can be the future at the position for Arizona State, be the future of the program. Not to beat the same drum over and over again, but that really is the most important aspect here for Sam Leavitt, is to play well enough and play at a high enough level that he does become the first person you talk about when you look at Arizona State Sun Devils football. He should be QB1. If for no other reason, then you need a youth movement, especially because you look at the depth chart and it's a lot of veterans. You need somebody who's young enough for fans to go, wow, we got him for 2 more years, 3 more years, 4 more years. Man, I got to feel good about us to be winning a lot of football games. I feel good about him to make it to the next level. That's what you want out of Sam Leavitt. And I think he's absolutely capable of delivering that for you. QB1, Sam Leavitt, no doubt. QB2, I think this could end up being a coin flip. I really do. Like, I definitely lean, towards Trenton Bourguet being QB2. But Jeff Sims has every bit of an argument to be QB2. And I know that a lot of people aren't going to like to hear that, but the difference between Sims and Bourguet is Sims has a lot of starting time in his collegiate career. He had 3 years as a starter at Georgia Tech. He got some opportunities at Nebraska last year, not a lot of opportunities, but this is somebody that has a lot of game time action. Compared to Trenton Bourguet, Bourguet has seen less than a season's worth of significant playtime. Like, and in that playtime, he's looked good, and I'm definitely a fan. Jeff Sims brings a little bit more to the table. He does have a good arm, and he is somebody that is a legitimate dual threat. That's something that could be the difference maker between Bourguet and Sims. But for this projection, I do have Bourguet as QB2 and I have Jeff Sims as QB3. The biggest reason that I am going with Bourguet ahead of Sims is the fact that Bourguet has been here. He's been here. He's done that. He's got starts. He's got a lot of experience with two different offensive philosophies here, from what Herm Edwards had instilled with his coaching staff to what Kenny Dillingham has instilled with his coaching staff. And sure, you've had different offensive coordinators. You had Zach Hill. You had, who was last year? Bo Baldwin. Now you have Marcus Arroyo. Like, there is different philosophies, but the one constant is the fact that he's been at Arizona State for 4 years. He's seen it all, done it all. That's the biggest difference maker for me. He does have a connection with the program. He has a connection with some of the veteran players here. He's also just somebody who has earned a lot of respect from this coaching staff and from the fan base, whether it's the students, the former players, or the alumni, or people who just root for Arizona State. They know who Trenton Bourguet is, and they like Trenton Bourguet. That's the biggest difference for me, is somebody who has been around the program long enough to earn that distinction as QB2. With Jeff Sims, like I said, it really is important to highlight how much playtime this guy has had in 4 years of college football. You got to give him his roses at some point. You got to give him his flowers. I understand he hasn't been the greatest player in the world. I understand that there's definitely questions as to whether or not you are overly comfortable with him being the starting quarterback in a worst case scenario where Leavitt and Bourguet are either really bad or they go down with injury. I think Sims still gives you plenty of what's the word I'm looking for? Confidence, I suppose. If he's your QB3, I mean, can't really complain with that. Last guy on the depth chart, not a surprise, Navi Bruzon. Bruzon is a walk-on freshman, preferred walk-on. There's a learning curve for him. But what is important to note is this is a wildly talented quarterback who had some of the most success in the history of Arizona high school football. Did a lot with Liberty High School. He was a two-time Gatorade Player of the Year, national champion. This is somebody who has proven time and time again that he deserves every bit of I'm struggling with my words today. He deserves the love. He deserves the fanfare. He deserves the respect. But again, it's a learning curve. It is a big step up from Liberty High School to Power 5 football, Power 4, whatever it is at this point. It's not going to be easy for Navi Bruzon. But I do like that he is in this QB room. And I've mentioned this before as well. He is the face of the Activate the Valley movement. It's Kenny Dillingham saying, look, you don't have to be a 5-star in the state of Arizona. You can be that preferred walk-on, and we're still going to place that value in you because we're going to say, hey, if you work hard enough, 5-star, 3-star, walk-on, whatever, we want you here. We want you building this culture here. So Bruzon does have a lot of value to this team, even if he is QB4. There is a lot that Bruzon brings here from a program standpoint and from a culture building standpoint. But he is QB4 for me in an actual conversation about listing the order of the depth chart. Now we're going to close out this podcast talking about the upside and the downside that you have here We'll get to that right now. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Game off. We got to talk here about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying, flag on the play. We've already talked about it, but there's so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, such as unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings and heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench, go download it free on the Google Play or App Store. Game on. And one more time, wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are closing out this podcast with the upside and the downside of the quarterback position. And I don't know if there's a position on this roster that feels more volatile is the first word that comes to mind, but in a very good way and in a very interesting way. The upside here is really good. The biggest part of the upside is that Sam Leavitt is good enough to get you to a winning record. Arizona State has won 3 games in each of the last 2 seasons, 3 games in 2022, 3 games in 2023. It is not a high bar for whoever is quarterback to come in here and guide Arizona State to a better record than what they were a year ago, to 2 years ago, maybe even the best quarterback since Jaden Daniels. You are not being given a high bar. It truly is like, hey man, I know this isn't the best situation in the world. Can you go out and do this for me? And just give us any kind of a glimpse that we're making progress. But I do think that you could have one of these guys lead you to a winning record. This is a very difficult schedule coming up. This is not a favorable schedule for Arizona State as of right now. But with that in mind, that doesn't mean that you can't find a quarterback here, an option that is not good enough or not, what am I trying to say? That could lead you to that winning record. There is upside here. Sam Leavitt obviously is the man. He is the most talented quarterback on this roster. In terms of upside, he's one of the most talented players, period, either side of the football. There is a lot of potential here for Sam Leavitt to become the face of the program and become one of the better quarterbacks that ASU has had in the last 10 years. He's very good. There's a reason he was a 4-star. He is every bit as talented as Jaden Rashada was. I am trying to give him every bit of the respect that he deserves. Leavitt can do it. But beyond him, I mean, Bourguet could establish himself as an all-timer this year, if he's not already. And I know what you're thinking, like an all-timer, he doesn't have the stats for it. And it's not about the stats with Trenton Bourguet. It's about the fact that this is someone that you just love for the program because of the way that he carries himself and the way that he has dedicated so much time to this program. He could have transferred at any time in his stint at Arizona State to go to a place where he could be a full-time starter. And no one would have blamed him, but he didn't. He has stayed here every single year, whether he started 6 games or he didn't get on the field at all. He has been one of the biggest constants, if not the biggest constant, that Arizona State has had in the last 3-4 years. You just love Trenton Bourguet. It's impossible to hate him. You may not like him as an actual football player. He may frustrate you, but that doesn't mean that he's someone that you can just go, oh, I hate Trenton Bourguet. He just makes me so angry. At least he shouldn't be. If there is a part of you that has animosity towards Trenton Bourguet, I don't know that I can respect that. I really don't. Like, he is such a good young man. I'm very excited for his future, whether he is able to get into some kind of pro league, whether it's the UFL or the CFL, NFL gives him a tryout, who knows? Or whether or not he just gets into coaching, which I know is something he has said, is he wants to be a graduate assistant at Arizona State and work under Kenny Dillingham. He can be an all-timer. Jeff Sims, best upside here, he can be a really good weapon for you. I already talked about how he's a really good runner. I talked about how he's got a lot of playtime under his belt. This is a guy that in a best case scenario, you bring out for a handful of plays each game, let him do a little bit of work, whether it's trick plays, whether it's quarterback design runs, maybe you flex him out somewhere. I don't know. But he could end up being somebody that just does so many different things for you. And I am excited the more I think about it and the more I kind of put it in this perspective of like, hey, I understand he's not the best quarterback in the world, but he could be somebody that makes a difference for you. That's where I get excited about Jeff Sims. The downside, it's for all these guys, and that's that they all struggle. This has been a common theme for Arizona State the last couple of years, is they have not gotten good quarterback play. Trenton Bourguet has been up and down. Emory Jones was more bad than he was good. Jaden Rashada showed upside, but he only played 3 games. Drew Pine was not good. Jacob Conover was not good. Arizona State has really struggled with quarterback play over the last several years, whether we're not even just the first year of Kenny Dillingham. And there's a chance that they could do it once again. When you consider the guys that have transferred out, including Elijah Badger, when you consider the new offense of Marcus Arroyo, you're already on your second offensive coordinator in as many years. When you consider how difficult this schedule is, it would not be a surprise if everyone struggled, whether it was Leavitt or Sims or Brzon or Bourguet, or if they get another guy. Everyone could struggle. That is a very realistic outcome here for Sun Devils football. And it's not exciting to think about, but it is worth taking that glance at. I do think that you're going to have a significantly better quarterback room this year than you did last year or 2 years ago. I do think that Arizona State has that opportunity, and these quarterbacks have that opportunity to have good, if not really good, quarterback play. I'm not ready to say great. I'm not ready to say elite, because it is a room that has a lot of uncertainty. It's a room that we don't know a lot about. It's a room that has a lot more concerns than it does assurances. We'll see how it looks. I think that this is a high upside room, especially with Sam Leavitt. But I can also recognize that this is a room that could really struggle once again and place Arizona State behind the 8 ball and deliver us another 3-win season. It won't be easy. And there's going to be a lot of trials and tribulations here for Arizona State. I'm excited to see how it goes. High upside, pretty low downside. We'll see. I want to know what you guys think about the quarterback situation. Are you a fan? Are you concerned? What's your order? Do you think Sam Leavitt is going to be the best quarterback since Jaden Daniels? Do you think we're going to be looking somewhere else? What do you think of Navi Brzon? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrads36. and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. But wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications to get an update whenever we post new content. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Like I said, this is going to be a new series for us that we're going to be focusing on for the rest of this week and part of next week as well. Tomorrow, we're going to be taking a look at the running backs from Cameron Scadaboo to Raleek Brown to Jason Brown and everybody else. This is a running back room that's got me excited. It should have you excited as well, and we're going to preview it the same thing as today, an overview, the depth chart projection, upside and downside. I'll see you guys tomorrow to discuss that. Until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun.